In early 2025, a single dozen eggs at some American grocery stores crossed $8, which is absurd for a thing a chicken makes for free. For most of recent history, a dozen eggs cost somewhere between $1 and $2, the cheapest protein on the entire shelf. So the obvious question is, what could possibly happen to a chicken to make its eggs cost 4 times more in a single year? The answer involves a virus, a very strange feature of how chickens are kept, and a market with almost no slack built into it. And the part nobody notices is that the egg companies left standing actually had one of their best years ever. Let's start with the chicken, because to understand egg prices, you first have to understand how almost no slack exists in egg supply. The United States keeps roughly 300 million egg-laying hens at any given time, and each one lays around 1 egg per day. That sounds like a comfortable cushion, but in reality, the country eats almost exactly what those hens produce, with very little left over. Eggs are also basically impossible to stockpile because a fresh egg is only good for a few weeks before it has to be sold. So unlike oil or wheat, you can't build up a giant warehouse of eggs to ride out a bad month. That means the egg market runs at a knife's edge. Supply and demand have to match almost perfectly, almost every single day. And when a market has no buffer like that, even a small drop in supply can send prices flying. Now enter the villain of this story, which is a virus with the unfriendly name highly pathogenic avian influenza. Avian flu has been around for a long time, but the strain that hit starting in 2022 was unusually deadly and unusually widespread. When this virus reaches a flock, it doesn't just make a few birds sick, it can kill nearly the entire flock within days. Here's the brutal part. Even if some birds survive, the rules require killing the whole flock to stop the spread. This practice is called culling, and it's why one infected hen can mean millions of dead birds across a single farm. And the reason culling is so devastating comes down to how modern egg farms are physically built. A single commercial egg barn can house over 1 million hens packed together under one roof to keep costs low. That concentration is wonderfully efficient when everything is healthy because fewer buildings and workers mean cheaper eggs for you. But that same concentration is a catastrophe during an outbreak, because one infection forces you to destroy 1 million birds at once. Between 2022 and early 2025, this cycle repeated again and again, killing well over 100 million egg-laying hens in total. Suddenly, the country's flock had a giant hole in it, and remember, there was almost no spare capacity to begin with. When millions of hens disappear, the eggs they would have laid simply vanish from grocery shelves over the following weeks. And here's where the knife-edge market does its thing. A small drop in eggs creates a huge jump in price. Economists call this inelastic demand, which is a fancy way of saying people keep buying eggs almost no matter the price. Think about it. Eggs go into your breakfast, your cake, your cookies, and 1,000 recipes that don't have an easy substitute. So when supply drops by even 10%, prices don't rise 10%. They can easily double or triple instead. That mismatch is the core engine of the egg crisis, and it explains why the swings feel so violent and sudden. Now let's follow the money, because the price you pay is not the price the farmer gets. The price of eggs is set first at the wholesale level, where producers sell big trays to distributors and grocery chains. There's a benchmark wholesale price that traders watch closely, and during the worst of the crisis, it spiked to record highs. Grocery stores then add their own markup on top of that wholesale price before the carton lands in your cart. Interestingly, eggs are often a loss leader, meaning stores keep them cheap to lure you inside to buy everything else. So during the crisis, some stores actually swallowed part of the price spike rather than scaring shoppers away completely. But the real money story is happening one level up, at the giant companies that own the hens. And here is the counterintuitive twist that almost nobody notices about a supply crisis like this one. A farm whose flock gets wiped out by the virus obviously loses money, sometimes catastrophically, sometimes for the entire year. But a farm whose flock stays healthy gets to sell its eggs into a market where prices have suddenly tripled. Their cost is barely changed, since feeding a hen costs the same, whether eggs sell for $2 or $8. So the surviving producers earn enormous profit margins on every single carton simply because their competitors got sick. The largest egg producer in America, Cal-Maine Foods, is a real company you can look up on the stock market. During the worst of the egg crisis, Cal-Maine reported some of the highest profits in its entire history. In one quarter of its 2025 fiscal year, the company's net income jumped to several $100 million. That is the strange logic of a supply shock. The disaster that destroyed some farms made the survivors richer. Now, this raises an obvious suspicion, and lots of people raised it loudly during the crisis. If the big producers are getting rich, are they secretly causing the price spike on purpose? The honest answer is that the virus is real and the bird losses are real and well documented by the government. No company invented avian flu, and no producer wants their own flock culled because that wipes out their birds too. But that doesn't mean the surviving companies have any reason to rush prices back down once the panic eases. In fact, the U.S. Department of Justice opened an investigation into whether egg producers were keeping prices artificially high. That probe is ongoing, and the companies deny wrongdoing, insisting the high prices simply reflect lost birds and real scarcity. The truth is probably both things at once. A real shortage created the spike, and concentration let a few firms enjoy it. Because here's a fact most shoppers don't know. The egg industry is dominated by a handful of very large companies. When an industry is that concentrated, prices tend to move up fast during shortages and drift down very slowly afterward. Economists even have a nickname for this asymmetry: prices that act like a rocket going up and a feather coming down. Now let's zoom back out, because there's another quiet factor in egg prices that has nothing to do with disease. Many states have passed laws requiring eggs to come from cage-free hens, including big markets like California. Cage-free systems are more humane, but they need more space and more labor, which raises the baseline cost of every egg. So, even before the virus, the floor under egg prices had been slowly rising in much of the country, and cage-free flocks are sometimes even more exposed to outbreaks because the birds roam and mingle more freely. Then add general inflation, which pushed up the cost of feed, fuel, packaging, and the workers who run the farms. Chicken feed in particular is mostly corn and soybeans, whose prices jumped after global supply disruptions. So the final egg price is really a stack: feed, plus labor, plus packaging, plus the giant scarcity spike on top. Now here's a question that quietly drives the whole thing. Why don't farmers just make more chickens? It turns out you can't conjure laying hens overnight, and this lag is a huge part of the price story. A newly hatched chick takes roughly 4 to 5 months before it grows up enough to start laying eggs. So even after an outbreak ends, a farm that lost 1 million hens needs months to rebuild its flock. During those months, the missing eggs stay missing, and the high prices stay high because nothing fills the gap. This is why the crisis came in waves. A fresh outbreak would hit just as the supply was starting to recover. Each new wave reset the clock, killing more birds and pushing the recovery further into the future. And because eggs can't be imported easily in large quantities, the U.S. couldn't just buy its way out of the shortage. Eggs are fragile, perishable, and tightly regulated, so they don't ship across oceans the way frozen goods can. The government did scramble to import some eggs from places like Turkey and South Korea, but only in modest amounts. Those imports were a drop in the bucket against a country that eats hundreds of millions of eggs every single day. So the price stayed elevated until the simplest fix of all finally kicked in: time and a pause in outbreaks. When the virus calmed down and flocks rebuilt, supply slowly returned and wholesale prices began falling from their peak. But notice the asymmetry one more time, because it's the part that quietly costs you the most money. Wholesale prices fell faster than the prices on grocery shelves, meaning stores held their retail prices high for a while. That gap between falling costs and sticky shelf prices is a little extra margin nobody really voted for. Now let's step back and ask the bigger question: who actually profits from a crisis like this overall? The clearest winners are the large producers whose flocks survived and sold eggs into a tripled price market. The clearest losers are the farms that got culled and the millions of shoppers who simply paid more for breakfast. And a quieter loser is anyone whose business runs on eggs, like bakeries, diners, and breakfast restaurants. Some restaurants started adding an egg surcharge to menus, a small fee tacked on just to cover the spike. That surcharge is the crisis reaching all the way down the chain into your omelet at the corner diner. So let's assemble the whole machine, because each piece on its own seems small, but together they're explosive. First, the market runs with almost no slack and eggs can't be stockpiled, so supply must match demand daily. Second, farms are hyper-concentrated, so a single infection forces the destruction of millions of birds at a time. Third, demand barely budges, so a small loss in supply detonates into a huge spike in price. Fourth, rebuilding a flock takes months, so the shortage and the high prices both linger long after the outbreak. Fifth, you can't easily import eggs, so the country has no quick escape hatch from the shortage. And sixth, with so few big producers, prices rocket up fast and feather down slow, padding margins along the way. Stack those 6 forces together, and you get an $8 carton of something a chicken makes for free. The deeper lesson here is about efficiency, and it applies to far more than eggs. We built a food system optimized to make eggs as cheap as physically possible during normal times, packing 1 million birds into one barn shaved pennies off every carton for decades, and we all enjoyed it. But the same efficiency that made eggs cheap is exactly what made them so fragile when one virus showed up. Efficiency and resilience are usually a trade-off, and we quietly chose maximum cheapness over a safety buffer. That trade-off works beautifully until the rare bad year arrives, and then the bill comes due all at once. You'll see this exact pattern in supply chains for computer chips, baby formula, lumber, and dozens of other goods. Whenever a product is squeezed for maximum efficiency, it tends to become brittle in ways customers never see coming. So the next time eggs are weirdly cheap, remember that cheapness is quietly borrowing against a future bad year. And the next time they're absurdly expensive, you'll know it isn't really about greed or a single villain. It's about a fragile machine doing exactly what it was built to do, just under conditions it was never built for. The virus pulled the trigger, but the concentration and the no-slack design loaded the gun years in advance. And the companies that survived didn't have to do anything clever to win. They just had to still have chickens. In a market this tight, simply surviving the disaster was the most profitable strategy of all. So the humble egg turns out to be a perfect little lesson in how modern prices actually work. A free thing made by a chicken can cost $8, not because of one greedy person, but because of a system. Next time you crack one into a pan, you're holding a tiny barometer of supply, disease, and corporate margins. And that, in a nutshell, or rather a shell, is the hidden economics of why eggs got so expensive.